Committee to order. I would remind all members to please silence your cell phones. I would advise any guests, if you wish to speak on any of the bills, there is a sign-up sheet in the back. Additional testimony is at the discretion of the chair based on time restraints and information already presented. And just a reminder, there are no signs permitted in the committee rooms. Do any of the members have any introductions at this time? If not, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Ballman,
Present.
Representative Bojanowski,
Here.
Representative Brown, Representative Emily Callaway,
Present.
Representative Josh Callaway,
Present.
Representative Decker,
Present.
Representative Doan,
Here.
Representative Jackson,
Present.
Representative Lewis,
Here.
Representative Massaroni,
Present.
Representative McCool, Representative Rayburn,
Here.
Representative Rawlings,
Here.
Representative Raymond, Representative Riley, Representative Timoney,
Here.
Representative Weber, Representative Wilner, here. Vice Chair Baker,
Here.
Vice Chair Truitt, Chair Tipton.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. I received a message from Representative Truitt, Representative McCool. They are stuck in traffic. Apparently there's a bad accident on I-75, so just wanted to explain. We do have some members that have another meeting that starts at 9 o'clock, so if you see members coming and going, I just wanted to inform you what's going on. The first bill for consideration today is Senate Bill 247, an act relating to transient public school students. Senator Givens. Senator Givens, please identify yourself for the record, and then I will administer the oath.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I am State Senator David Givens, the 9th Senate District, and honored to be here in front of you today.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed, Senator.
Chairman, members, again, thanks for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 247 for your consideration. Some months ago, in a committee conversation we were having with some education policy leaders, the point was made that one of the biggest challenges our early young students face is transience, moving from a school to another school and the impact that has on that young student. Recent studies, interestingly enough, have indicated not only does it negatively impact that student that's moving from an established, structured environment that he or she knows to another one, but the students of the cohorts of that student, the first, second, and third graders that may have had a couple of years with that student suddenly have a friend that's gone. And so, in an effort to try and change the default position, this legislation simply says if you're a first, second, or third grader and you move from a school in a district to another school in the same district, the default position is if your parents want you to stay at the same school, they can ask that you stay there, and the district must provide transportation provided it's within the bus routes and means of that district. Fairly simple legislation, but could have a significant impact on these young students, especially in these formative years when structure is so important.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes, thank you. So I know we do this for kids who are struggling with homelessness and losing their housing under McKinney-Vento. And I do have a lot of children that I see coming in and out of my building who this would benefit. My concern is with a district as large as JCPS, with the number of children who would then require additional transportation, where would the fine line be? I mean, it basically says that the district can say they can't provide transportation. We've just done a whole lot of work, and much to the chagrin of me, who will now have to go to work at 7:40, we've got a system where we can have enough bus drivers in order to drive the children where they need to go. I can't imagine adding another piece to that, which would be, a couple of children here and there. Could you just explain further how a district would handle those type of logistic issues?
Certainly glad to answer the question, and thanks for the question. So the initial filing of the bill was a prescriptive, the district shall provide. Conversations back and forth. That went on consent in the Senate. But conversations back and forth indicated that there were going to be some challenges in some districts. So we pulled it off consent, put an amendment on that you see as the very last 4 lines. The superintendent may deny the transportation request if he or she determines the distance and travel time that the student would spend in transport is impracticable. The district shall then report the transportation denial and supporting rationale to KDE. So we're providing a mechanism whereby the district can say, this is just not workable. It's simply not workable. We don't have buses on that route for whatever reason, and they deny that request, but they have to report it so we can better understand why a district like the one you mentioned, Jefferson County Public Schools, which has so many bus routes and change stations, and you would think could provide a lot of that transportation, provided the student's not on the bus too long. I would hope they would start at yes, and I think they will. I had a great conversation with Superintendent Polio just a moment ago, and he indicated support at least along the lines of the transients being a key problem in that district and something he would love to help alleviate. He did not indicate clear support for the legislation. He did not indicate any opposition to the legislation.
I have a question from Representative Jackson.
I think Representative Bojankowski just brought up the question that I had too, Senator Gibbons. You know, in Warren County, 4th largest school, we're nothing like Jefferson, but we are the 4th largest school district in the state. And I was just thinking, if you move from one side of that county to the other, and as she said, we really have trouble getting bus drivers now. I think we're funded at about 70% transportation right now. So it would put a financial burden as well as a physical burden, I think, on, I think it's a great idea. But I like the clause that you just read to give the school system an out if they couldn't provide that service.
Great observation. I'll reply briefly and say it also is narrowed down to children that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so we're narrowing that universe even more. I had some legislators on our side that were interested in going further than 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, but I consider this a toe dip. We're going to try this and see. I think it can have a positive impact, especially on these young students. So thank you for the question.
I have a question from Co-Chair Baker.
Senator, thank you for the legislation. If the school cannot provide transportation, they can still go to they can still go to the same school, but if the parent provides transportation, if the school is unable to do so, is that correct?
I was listening to you, and a thought occurred to me along the lines of what you're just asking. So say it one more time. If the district can't provide transportation,
But they want to remain in that same school, if the parent provides the transportation, can they still stay at that school but just not have the transportation?
that's a great question, and we didn't address it in the bill, and I had not thought of it until now. I would presume that the district would work with that family to say, your student is staying, you're providing transportation, no issues there. But again, the legislation does not speak to that in the way I read it.
Okay. Can I make a brief comment, Chair?
Proceed.
I appreciate the intent of the legislation, and I'll just give you a brief story about my situation. My parents divorced when I was a small kid, and as a middle school student, my mom moved outside that area, so I could not continue to go to that school. She took me every day. I took the bus to my grandma's house, and she picked me up in the evening. That little bit of normalcy for me as a teenager, a middle school kid, was very nice. So I can see where this will be beneficial to some kids who are struggling with different things, even more so than the early years, but those middle school years when things are kind of tough and there are lots of questions swirling in their heads. But I appreciate this and be glad to support it.
Great. Thank you, and that's a good observation.
I have a question from Representative Timoney.
Thank you, Chairman. And Senator, thank you for bringing this. I love this idea. As a principal who's worked in a high poverty school, I see that the issue with transient populations it's devastating. It truly is. So any steps that we can make forward in that is definitely appreciated. I did have a question what about kindergarten? Because in my opinion, I think that kindergarten should be included in that, because if we were to have a student that would be to move from one school to another during the kindergarten year, I think that the impact would be pretty significant. And that kindergarten year is so important as far as socialization and kind of learning routines and procedures. that I think that probably more so with the kinder group, that you'd want them staying have as many options to stay as possible.
Great observation, Representative, and I had not considered that. If it were the will of this group to add kindergarten, I have no issues with that. And again, I don't sense this is a piece of legislation that has to be finished before the veto period. This is something that if we choose to do in the last 2 days, I think we've got a window of time to get it right. So I'm open to that conversation. Thank you.
I have a question from Representative Riley.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senator Givens, for bringing this forth. I don't have any questions because Representative Timoney just asked my question. I think the kindergarten needs to be a piece of that too.
Coach, if you're for it, I'm for it.
All right.
Representative Bojanowski has another question.
Yes, kind of following up when Rep. Timoney was asking his question. What about a kindergarten or first, second, and third grader who has a sibling? Would the sibling then be able to stay at the school as well? I mean, it's great that the younger kids could, but if you have a family unit, adding in a bit so that the siblings of those children could also stay in their school.
So you're indicating if we had an eighth grader, but
No,
it wouldn't
I
be
mean,
an eighth
generally
grader.
elementary will be through fifth grade.
So a fifth grader, you'd have
So
a
it would
fifth
be
grader.
a fourth or fifth grade
Yeah.
sibling or set of siblings who then you might have an option for one of your children, but not the other,
Great
to be able to
question.
keep the family together.
Again, I would be supportive of it. I would be hopeful, and I think we've got enough professionals in the education space closer to the front line than we are that are going to work every day to try and accommodate families any way they can. And in my mind, think with me about what I presume goes on here. If you have a student that is taking a seat in a school building now, the capacity's there, everything is set up for that student to stay, and then the family moves, and I would think this would not be hard. I'm open if we want to go ahead and broaden it, but I would think the district would probably work with those families. Thank you.
I have a question from Representative Emily Callaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thoughts were along the same lines as Representative Baker in regards to the requirement being there. I read it and I didn't see that didn't pop out as a requirement. I mean, I see the shall provide now, but that's a separate section. So I read that to mean that that Section 2 of Section 1 says that they're eligible. So I don't know if we can clean up the language there and make it to where they're still available to go without the transportation. I think changing that to a may is going to open it up too much, but I think, I'm not sure, but I think if with a little bit of language cleanup, it wasn't too much of a stretch for me to say that they didn't necessarily have to require that, or that the parent couldn't opt out. I just think there could be some language cleanup because I think that is important, that a parent could still be allowed to take the student and not break that part of it.
So great question, and I'm reading again what you've directed my attention to and what Co-Chair Baker mentioned. If we read 2 as standalone, we may have addressed this already. Follow me on the language. 2 stands by itself. When an eligible student changes his or her residence during the school year and the change in residence results in the student being assigned to a different school within the same district, the parent or guardian shall have the option to request the student remain enrolled in the original school. So they can stay there.
It sounds like a
Isn't that-
standalone is how I read that.
I think it is too. So Co-Chair Baker, you follow us on that? I think that is a standalone. So the student stays. Then we go on to say that transportation shall be provided
with
in
the
3A. Yep.
And maybe add a C instead of the superintendent. The parent may, opt into car rider option.
I would be fine with
Something to
sure.
that effect.
I would be fine with that.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for
I
the
appreciate
question.
your work on this.
Sure.
Senator, sounds like we may have a little work group going
I think
in the near future.
Co-Chair Chair Tipton, you understand these work groups quite well. So
I will add, last year Senator West and I worked on Senate Bill 9 along with Representative Bojanowski. And these students in early literacy, I think this is critical in reading. for these students who may be going in a district from school to school. We strengthened the language in that where a superintendent could have a common curriculum across the district, which I think helped, but it is vital. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Mariah, call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes.
Representative Brown? Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Doan?
Aye.
Representative Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni?
Yes.
Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond?
Yes.
Representative Riley? Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Truitt? Representative Weber?
Yes.
Representative Wilner?
Yes.
Chair Tipton?
Chair votes aye. With 18 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 pass votes, Senate Bill 247 passes with favorable expression. Same shall pass on the House floor. Thank
Chairman,
you, Senator.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I enjoyed our discussion. Thanks.
Have all members received a committee substitute for Senate Bill 145 and Senate Bill 156? If you have not, don't have those, let us know, and we will get staff to get one. Next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 145. Senator Fromeyer, you please come forward. Please introduce yourself for the record, and I will administer an oath.
Good morning. I'm Shelley Funky Fromeyer, Senator from District 24, Campbell,
Please-
Pendleton, Bracken.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Now, we'll remind members that you do have the House Committee substitute in front of you. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, in fact, it ties nicely to what Senator Givens was sharing. One of the efforts of Senate Bill 145 is really a cleanup of the 2021 House Bill 563 as amended by the latest substitute as well. This bill removes from statute, but with the sub that you now have in front of you, I think it articulates what came out of our Education Committee in the Senate last week. Some confusion. So this now articulates, unless permitted to be eligible for varsity athletics by any transfer rule, policy, or administrative regulation promulgated by the state board or any agency designated by the state board to manage interscholastic athletics. Any student who transfers enrollment from a district of residence to a non-district under KRS 157.350-4 after enrolling in grade 9 and participating in a varsity sport shall be ineligible to participate in interscholastic athletics for 1 calendar year from the date of the transfer. The state board or any agency designated by the state board to manage interscholastic athletics may adopt rules, policies, and bylaws and promulgate administrative regulations necessary to carry out this paragraph. Some of the unintended consequences that we experienced, and I did in Northern Kentucky, I have 11 districts within my Senate district, were 7th graders and 8th graders that actually did participate in varsity athletics. And once they made that high school decision, they actually were then required to sit out a year. So that wasn't what was intended. Your eligibility was intended to begin at 9th grade. It just wasn't so clearly stated. So great work. I do believe Representative Tipton.
Motion on the amendment?
Yeah.
We have a motion on the sub. Is there a second? Have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. House Committee Sub 1 to Senate Bill 145 is before us. Please proceed.
Excellent. Thank you. And the situation of transfer for athletic advantage by those high schoolers who have already played varsity athletics is in regulation, and it is managed by the KHSAA already. The purpose for this committee sub, again, is to make it so much more specific and clear that eligibility begins in ninth grade, and that any transfer exceptions that might need to be considered, there's a body to consider that. Those regulations, we're trying not to overreach into statute. It's already addressed very clearly in regulations, and we have a regulatory body of the KHSAA to handle that. So that's what you're seeing in the sub. That's section I on page 6. Line 15 is where that begins and finishes at 25. And you'll see then that effectively replaces what it was listed in House Bill 563 previously.
We do have an individual signed up to speak on the bill. Commissioner Tackett, would you come forward? Commissioner, please identify yourself for the record, and then I will administer the oath.
Thank you. I'm Julian Tackett, the Commissioner of the High School Athletic Association.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed, Mr. Julian.
I just wanted to be sure that there was an opportunity for any questions that you might have. I know that last week, when the bill was considered on the Senate side, there was some not very accurate reports put out by the media, and several of you have reached out, several members of both bodies have reached out for clarification. We think this presents a little bit clearer picture of what the intent was and what the intention of the amendment is. And we already, just for your information, we already have 11 published exceptions to the restriction on transfer that have been promulgated through the ARS and your all's supervision over the years, and we think we can cover most situations.
We do have a question from Representative Timoney.
Thank you, Chairman. And my question was going to be, has the Commissioner and has the KHSA weighed in on this? So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Timmy.
Seeing no other members have a question, is there a motion on the bill?
Motion on the bill.
Have a motion and a second on Senate Bill 145 as amended by House Committee Sub 1. For no other questions, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes.
Representative Brown? Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Doan?
Aye.
Representative Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni?
Yes.
Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond?
Yes.
Representative Riley? Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Truitt? Representative Weber?
Yes.
Representative Wilner?
Yes.
Chair Tipton?
Chair votes aye. With 18 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 pass votes, Senate Bill 145 is amended by Primary House Substitute 1 is adopted. For favorable expression, the same should pass on the House floor. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Next on
much.
our agenda is Senate Bill 156. Senator West, please come forward. Senator West, identify yourself for the record. I'll administer the oath.
Steve West, District 27.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have before you, members of the committee, Senate Bill 156. Just for clarification of what we're looking at with the sub today, this committee, as you recall, passed 156. The new language on this bill starts on page 32 in the last 2 pages, and that's the addition. In a nutshell, what the new language does is calls for an independent third-party audit of JCPS to be conducted by the Auditor of Public Accounts.
We have a motion and a second on the sub. We do have Representative Bojanowski has a question.
All right. So thank you. I was really excited about this bill. I mean, really excited about this bill, and now I'm just not sure. Could you share studies, audits, reviews, and so on that have been conducted in JCPS in recent years?
My understanding is that there was an audit that was conducted about 6 years ago through KDE, and that was the last outside independent audit that I know of. But others may have more information.
If I may.
Proceed.
All right, so here's the list I have. We had the audit in 2014 by Adam Edlin through the auditor's office. We had an audit by KDE that resulted in a 2018 corrective action plan that covered terms of 2 different commissioners and took 2 to 3 years for the district to satisfy every element of that corrective action plan. There was another audit of our contract and labor agreements by KDE. We've had a compensation audit that was done independently outside the organization. We had an audit of our magnet program by an organization called Outside. In 2019, there was a Council of Great City Schools audit of management and organizational structures. We've recently had an audit of our transportation system by MIT. We've had multiple audits of our student assignment plan led by multiple independent outside organizations. And also the Federal Department of Education has audited our early childhood programs and special education services. That's a lot of audits, which gave a lot of great information for the district to use to drive, student success. My concern is, I don't know that we give the district enough time to figure out what to do and to implement the changes from all of these audits. And here we are, we're going to have a brand new audit. I don't know. It's just very concerning to me. And I think, we've got a lot of at-risk children. And I have no qualms about saying that I want their achievement to be the highest that it can be. We also, by the nature of our district, we sift kids out of buildings in order to put them in other programs. So we sift kids out of our typical elementary schools and put them into magnet programs, into a traditional school or another magnet. And then, I had a middle school principal say to me that by the time the kids get to her building that they've been sifted, the higher performing students have been sifted out 3 or 4 times. And so I find this statement that is dropped in a bill at 8 o'clock the night before we hear it at 8 o'clock in the morning just to be highly concerning. And maybe it's a signal and a message, but I think that a better signal and a better message would be to sit down with JCPS and have a conversation about what the concerns are. Thank you.
If I could briefly respond.
Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, this is not intended to be a negative in any way. Any high-level organization, any large organization conducts independent third-party audits on a fairly consistent basis. If you'll notice, it's the Auditor of Public Accounts. This information is for JCPS, but it's also for the General Assembly. We have an oversight responsibility as a General Assembly. 50 to 60% of our state budget goes to education. In the past budget, we plussed up K through 12 $500 million. And so a key component of that for the state is JCPS. That's a large portion of our scores, and we have a responsibility to make sure that every child in JCPS is getting a high-quality education. The Auditor of Public Accounts, the reason they were chosen is they should give us that independent third-party approach. KDE, although they do a great job, they are closely related to JCPS and intertwined on many issues. So this effort was meant to maybe get some outside information. And just as an additional note, this is not just JCPS. KCTC is conducting an independent third-party review by the Huron Group over a $3 million RFP study. Senator Stivers, in his resolution, is calling for a complete and thorough review of CPE and everything related to the post-secondary system. So we're not just picking on JCPS. This is an overall look at Kentucky educational system.
I will add that House Bill 250 last year called for an audit at Kentucky State University. I received notice that we should receive that report later this week or early next week, so members take note of that. On the timing, the agenda and the subs were ready late afternoon yesterday. However, could not send the agenda out until Senate Bill 156 was recommitted to the Education Committee in their possession, and that did not happen until we were in motions, petitions, communications last night. As you all know, session ran very late. Next question, Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like my colleague, I was very excited about this bill when we voted on it yesterday. I was pretty taken aback to get home, after 10 o'clock last night and see what had been added to it. And I want to expand on the theme of past audits. And you talk about oversight responsibility. First of all, we have a locally elected school board who has oversight responsibility directly elected by the voters in Jefferson County. I'll also say all of these audits that my colleague mentioned are available for public review. I'm actually going to look at Dr. Polio. Any of those audit results could be made available. So I've got confirmation from the boss there that all of that information could be made available. I want to mention the KDE audit in particular because I was on the board, the school board at that time, and to suggest that KDE was somehow intertwined with us, they actually recommended removing us as a board at that time. It was a very difficult time to be serving on the board. The public actually was very, I think the school board had never been more popular than at that time because the public was really outraged about this notion that the state was going to take over their locally elected officials. But to that audit, that was so thorough, it lasted for so long. We had KDE staff embedded with JCPS, like following staff around in and out of the schools every single day. That audit lasted so long that it required actually 2 different commissioners to complete it. It generated a corrective action plan from the Kentucky Department of Education. It was a lengthy corrective action plan. It was essentially an ongoing multi-year audit that lasted an additional 2 to 3 years until finally JCPS satisfied every single element of that corrective action plan. So I think that's really important for the members of this committee to understand that all of that is public record, that all of that has occurred. The whole list of audits that Rep. Bojanowski read off, not a single one of those audits entered into it with a recommendation of what a finding or what a recommendation should be. It really seemed like these were good faith audits. And part of, there's a lot about this brief section that shakes me up. One is that our schools were desegregated by the United States Supreme Court when the county and the city city school districts were merged back in the 1970s. And here we have in this new part of the bill that the audit should include recommendations on how the Jefferson County Public School District may be reconstituted into 2 or more school districts for consideration by the General Assembly. Now, for me, for one thing, the first thing I hear there is resegregation. So that's a concern. But I also, to go into an audit, for this to be a good faith audit, and I hear you say, Senator West, and I really want to believe you that this is not targeting but JCPS, but when I see the language here that targets JCPS and already says what the outcome should be, what one of the recommended outcomes should be, I have really great concern about that. And so much concern that I called our hardworking committee staff before 7 o'clock this morning. It was too early to call any of you guys, but I did request a committee amendment to just simply delete the language about including recommendations on how the Jefferson County Public School District may be reconstituted into 2 or more school districts. So, you know, I guess I'll turn to the chair. Are you open to, you know, a motion on that amendment?
As I announced at the first meeting of the Education Committee, any amendments or subs need to be timely delivered to the staff by 4 p.m. The sub was timely delivered to the staff. However, at this time, any committee amendment will not be in order.
And it's very disappointing because, you know, as we were in session, I got home after 10 p.m. last night, did not see it until then, couldn't call staff then. I was as timely as I could possibly be, given the circumstances. This feels extremely undemocratic. I have a lot of respect for you, Mr. Chairman, but I'm sorry that you won't make an exception in this case. That's all I have to say.
Representative Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Couple questions, maybe a statement, if that's okay. Who's going to pay for this audit?
Within the bill, it states that Jefferson County JCPS will pay for the audit.
So I guess we're mandating an audit on them, and we're going to ask them to pay for it.
That's correct. That's what the language says.
You know, you want me to continue, or you want me to come back to you every time?
You're fine.
Okay. All right. So, you know, we talk about unfunded mandates up here all the time. I'm assuming this is not going to be very cheap. Probably $1 million better, probably. To me, we could do a lot better things with our money if we really want to improve education. That's 10 reading specialists for 10 of the worst reading schools. That's 10 social workers, maybe. I mean, we could do a lot of things to improve education. The bill you presented us yesterday was a great bill, and I think we were all excited about it. And then at the last hour, last minute, we get something like this attached to it that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They've had audit after audit. What do we think this audit's going to show? We know what the problems are, but some of the things we're trying to do to help fix them, they're not going to work, you know, because we know our public schools are made up of our societal issues. So my question to everyone is, what are we doing about the societal issues? That's our public schools. We need more social workers. We need reading specialists. We need every kid reading on grade level by 3rd grade. And we're going to have them pay for another audit that's going to give us the information that we already know. So, I mean, to me, it's a waste of money, a waste of time. And here we are at the last hour, and we get something like this attached to a really good bill. And you know, and I know I've been here long enough to know that's how things operate up here, but it's not right. And I'm a no on this. Thank you.
I have a question from Representative Raymond, and that will be the last question from a member because we do have a citizen signed up to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, we've not adopted the sub, correct? I was hoping to ask questions about the sub, and then once we adopted it, to ask questions about that bill.
Proceed.
Sponsor, Senate Bill 156, I got deja vu because we passed this bill yesterday. So who asked for this language to be added and why into this bill?
This was an agreement of members of Senate and House. It's a group of those people, and I'm the guy carrying it. And so this is not a new thing. We've been working in conjunction for a long time with many people in Louisville to take a deep dive into JCPS and try to find some solutions to the problems there. To Representative Wilner's comment, I didn't mean to, say that KDE is a rubber stamp of JCPS. I would not say that. But the real reason we're here is that 6 in 10 JCPS students failed to reach the level deemed proficient in reading. 2/3 of Kentucky's lowest performing schools are in high poverty, mostly minority schools in JCPS. So we've had a ton of audits, sounds like, but going way back, But as a General Assembly, we have to be about results. We have to have results. And so those audits primarily have been for the information of JCPS, and that's great. But this audit, as constituted, would be primarily for the benefit of JCPS and the General Assembly. And we talk about recommended, maybe reconstituted. Any audit you have should give you a full range of options. So I would say the reconstitution will be the extreme option, going down to the lowest no change option. So if we're going to act as General Assembly in a consistent manner, we have to have good information. And so that's the whole purpose of this thing.
May I ask another question, please?
Quickly.
So, I'm surprised to hear about this group of House and Senate members and these stakeholders in Louisville who've been working on this issue, because I've not been consulted about it. My question is, was our superintendent, Dr. Marty Polio, consulted or even informed about this language before the bill came out last night?
He was not by me. I'm not sure if anyone else spoke with him about it, but not me personally.
That's a funny coalition. May I ask another question?
You can ask your questions when we get to the bill. We need to proceed at this time. At this time, we have one person who has signed up to speak. Superintendent Polio, will you please come to the table? Superintendent, please identify yourself for the record. I administer the oath.
Marty Polio, Superintendent, Jefferson County Public Schools.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I want to be clear. I got notification of this bill last night at 9 p.m. as I was getting ready to turn in for the evening. So it was like a punch to the gut. It was an absolute punch to the gut at 9 o'clock to get this bill, having no idea that this was coming. I come to you today not just as a superintendent. I come to you today as a JCPS father, the son of 2 JCPS teachers, an uncle of 2 JCPS students, former teacher, athletic director, assistant principal, principal, and now superintendent. So 26 years of my life have been dedicated to this district. Let me talk about those audits that we went through. In 2017, I was named interim superintendent. A comprehensive audit had taken place about 3 months before I took the job. We waited 12 months to get that audit back. It had 260 corrective action plans that we had to correct. 260. We methodically went through each of the 260 and changed those and improved our district. We also then had a second audit by the Kentucky Department of Education in 2020, which was after the corrective action plan we had implemented. And I will tell you this, anecdotally, I heard from multiple people that said, it's unbelievable the change that has happened in this district in 2 years. It is unbelievable. It's like a different district than it was 2 years ago. Not only those audits, but as Representative Bojanowski said, we've had a multitude of other audits. Most recently, November, we had a Cognia standards audit, which is a statute that you all have that any school that has a CSI school must have a district audit. We had a comprehensive district audit where Cognia, an outside independent auditor, came and said to us, and you can look up the report, and told us that what we are doing to support our highest needs schools is definitely on the right track. And so I say this to you because I don't know if everyone knows what we are doing in JCPS right now. At the very beginning of the pandemic, we started what we called a future state in JCPS. I may have spoken to you all some about it, but essentially what we said was the district hasn't changed in many years. Now we have to make changes if we're going to get outcomes that we want for our students. That included student assignment. It included facilities. It included resourcing our high poverty schools. It included being the top in technology, summer learning, changing start times for our kids so that we could impact kids and what they do and make sure attendance and student health is of the utmost priority. And so we did that. We have implemented that. We have passed student assignment changes, which many of you have talked about. We have built 4 schools, and we have 26 new buildings coming in the next 20 years. we have changed and completely resourced our high poverty schools in a different way that will start next year, which includes paying teachers $8,000 more to be in our high need schools. We have technology that has surpassed all other districts. We have 10,000 kids in summer learning. That's just a small snapshot. Now, the problem is they've just been passed, and we need time to implement that to make change. That's what we have to do in order to be successful. They have been passed by our board. Our Board of Education has been with us on this, and it is going to make significant difference for the kids of Jefferson County, including a tax increase that was recommended by Governor Bevins, the Education Commissioner, citing us for not raising taxes at any point in the audit. And we did that as well during the pandemic. We have now come out of the pandemic, and we are poised to make major change in JCPS. And as you can see, the work that we are putting in, and I'll say this bill was great yesterday. It was fantastic. We are also, and I thank you all for this, implementing K through 8 right now, ELA curriculum, math curriculum across the board, standardized for the first time ever because of the bill you passed. However, during this summer, which will be the most difficult summer of my career because of the changes we are making, changing start times, new student assignment plan, I could go on and on. We will now have an audit that has a predetermined result that says we are going to break our district into multiple districts. Our central office, which is the number one thing people talk about, the impact of ours, has one of the lowest percentages of budgets of central office and administration of any district in the Commonwealth. If we go to multiple districts, 2 or 3, right off the bat, 3 times the administration staff will be necessary in order to implement this plan. A teacher shortage is occurring right now. This will exacerbate it by 5 times in Jefferson County, because we will now have to have supports that will not go from a high school to a middle school across a district line. It will multiply the amount of vacancies we have in JCPS. And so I say this to you, not to mention, I won't even get into if you divide our district in any way because of the housing in Jefferson County, the racial and socioeconomic divide. What will happen will be extreme poverty district any way you slice Jefferson County. And that is a major problem. And so what I ask of you today is give us the chance to execute our plan. We have a plan, we're implementing it, we're executing it. Give us an opportunity to execute that plan. I know there are a lot of you sitting there right now who are educators, who are former educators. You know this isn't right. Thank you, Representative Lewis, for your comments. You know this isn't the right thing to do. I am not opposed to an audit at all. Bring an audit if that's what we have. I've stood up to 7, 8, 10 different audits in a matter of 5 years. I'm all right with that. Bring the audit if that's what it takes. Don't put in a predetermined decision with a recommendation to break up our district into multiple districts. That is not good for the community, and it will be one of the most devastating decisions for education in Jefferson County in 50 years. Thank you.
Superintendent Polio, thank you for your comments. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Senator West, you return to the table. We have a motion and a second on primary house substitute 1 to Senate Bill 156. Typically, I would do a roll call vote, but I would do a voice vote. But today we will do a roll call vote. Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
No.
Representative Brown? Representative Emily Callaway?
Pass.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker? Representative Doan?
Aye.
Representative Jackson?
No.
Representative Lewis?
No.
Representative Massaroni?
Yes.
Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond?
No.
Representative Riley?
Can I explain my vote?
Proceed.
Frankfurt's an interesting place, and we oftentimes get stuck in very, very difficult situations. And Senator West, you're stuck in one of those right now. appreciate the bill that you did yesterday, and I think it has a chance to make a lot of strides. I agree with Representative Lewis. You know, with the cost that this is going to be, we could hire a lot of reading specialists and put them in those low achieving schools. And in education right now, we need to put an emphasis on, especially in early grades, on reading. And anything else that distracts from that is not going to improve the situation for our young students. So I'm a no.
Representative Timoney?
Explain my vote briefly.
Proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to pass today. There's been a lot of really good discussion going on about this. I was excited about this bill yesterday. I was thrilled. I do have questions about a bill that's going to require a school district to pay for its own audit. I'm a firm believer that school districts are critical in their communities and they need to be transparent. And I'm a firm believer they will always stand up to any audit. It doesn't matter the school district. And I can't get in the way of a study. If there was a collaboration between asking JCPS, hey, are there areas that you'd like us to particularly focus on with our audit? Having a collaboration there, actually give them an ability to use the audit as a tool for improvement also. I think that's the collaboration piece that I'm looking for with this, so that's why I'm going to pass today.
Representative Truitt?
Explain my vote. I apologize, I missed some of the testimony today. Traffic was horrible on 75. But for that reason, I didn't get to hear the whole testimony. I'm going to pass for right now.
Representative Weber? Yes. Representative Wilner?
No.
Chair Tipton?
Chair votes aye. With 9 yes votes, 6 no votes, and 3 pass votes, Primary House Substitute 1 to Senate Bill 156 does not pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, we still have Senate Bill 156 on the floor. It is necessary for us to take a motion on that legislation again to send it back to the full House, the Rules Committee, so it would be in the possession of the House. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Have a motion and a second on Senate Bill 156. Is there any discussion? If not, Mariah, call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Bauman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
May I ask a quick clarification of what we're voting on? Yes, so
we're voting on the identical same bill we voted on yesterday.
Without the
sub, Senate
yes.
Bill 156.
I am a really enthusiastic yes.
Representative Brown? Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker? Representative Doan?
Aye.
Representative Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni?
Yes.
Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond?
Yes.
Representative Riley?
Yes.
Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Truitt?
Yes.
Representative Weber? Yes. Representative Wilner? Yes. Chair Tipton?
Chair votes aye. Senate Bill 156 passes for favorable expression. The same shall pass on the House floor. Members take note, we may have another special meeting this week, so please be listening for announcements. This meeting is adjourned.